Okay, as I mentioned, my name is Navdeep. I'm the project manager oversees the North Dakota system. Today we'll be conducting a training for NESC for your system training. So as you see here, I am at the login page. Your URL custom to North Dakota is northdakota.cityspan.com. Once you type in that URL, you'll be taken to this page. This page is your, like I mentioned, Pacific page for North Dakota. We have your login section. We have our help desk contact information section. And then we also have our notices section. The notices section can be used by your coordinators at each respective North Dakota program to put any notices that they would like for you to review. So as I mentioned, I will be posting the training here. So we're actually just going to go ahead and dive into the system. For the purposes of this training, we will be viewing the demo site. So I'm going to go ahead and enter the system. So many of you might see this same page when you log into your account. It looks familiar. It is your the home page that you are directed to upon logging into the system. So you'll see here, it just has your service site name would be in red and then contact information. Generally with this page, I always suggest putting contact information because sometimes there's users who perhaps, work with a coordinator directly or are new to the system and they need to know who to contact at North Dakota. This would be the right spot to put it. So for example, if you click edit here, you'll be taken to different questions, type of contribution, categories. I'm just going to scroll down to contact information. And then I will put that contact information here. So let's say that my coordinator is Sam Smith. The director's phone number is this number, and then I can put their testing email address. Once I've entered in that information, I'm going to go ahead and scroll up and click return. I just want to pause real quick. Someone messaged that they're not able to hear. Can someone confirm if they're able to hear me just to make sure that we're all on the same page?
I can hear you.
Okay. Jennifer Carlson can't hear me. If someone is able to get in touch with her. Just want to let you know. Okay. Let me just confirm by saying. Okay. So I'm just going to go back to the home page. Like I mentioned, once you've entered in this information, you'll be able to save this form and you'll see that contact information listed here. If there is a piece of data that your organization in particular collects, feel free to let me know and we can potentially add that information here. For example, instead of email or phone number, there's another address which we do collect actually. So if there's anything that in particular you collect, you can let us know. Is there any questions about the homepage? So like I mentioned, if you have questions, you can feel free to unmute yourself at the end of each section and go ahead and ask that question. If there's no questions, I will move on to the next section. Okay, perfect. Now we're going to actually start the data entry portion of the system. So I just want to stress that the data entered into the system must meet the requirements of North Dakota and for APR reporting. So we, in particular with our APR systems, in a lot of the forms have notices where it says APR required fields. So I'm going to show you that as I go through the system, but we want to make sure those are completed with quality data so your APR reports are generating accurately. Since we're touching on APR reports, I also want to know that we are aware of the new GIPRA updates that are occurring across the board. That is something Cityspan is working on. You are not required to enter in any different data as of right now. We will be making reports customized to pull the data already entered in the system.
Hang on. Sorry.
And I just want to pause real quick and see if Becky or Jennifer wanted to add anything about GIPRA.
This is Becky. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I work with the Department of Public Instruction overseeing 21st Century. So just know that we are communicating and working with all of the directors who will be filtering down the information to you guys, as well as there are different components of the new GEPRA measures that we need to start collecting and putting into Cityspan. Reports that we'll be pulling out. All that information will get to Jennifer and to you guys. The most important thing I just want to stress right now is capturing the student's unique identifier and entering that into the system when you are putting students in there. And then one of the other things is we will be tracking all students who receive programming, not just students who attend on a regular basis. That was a change with some of the GEPRA measures as well. But as information comes down to us, I'll always filter that to Jennifer to give to you guys and update you on what you should be collecting or entering in the system. But as of right now, there's not any huge changes.
Thank you. Yes. So as I mentioned, Cityspan is also working on making sure that these are reflected into the system. Your reporting isn't due until next June, but we will be getting everything ready by the end of this year and early next year for you. And with that being said, data entry, as I mentioned, is very important for these new GEPRA measurements as well as the existing APR reports. So the first step is entering in your participant records. So when you're on the participants and staff tab, this is where you enter in your participant records as well as staff records. So upon landing on the page, you are able to view by type. You're able to search by first name, last name, and you're also able to search by last name initial. This is basically a tool to search for youth. If you're just trying to look for a particular youth, you're trying to see an overall sense of your youth participants, you can search for them at this level. But the real thing that you'll be doing here is adding records. So let's go ahead and click Add Person. Like I mentioned, you have different participant types. Adults and youth are the two types of participants you can serve. For the most part, we're going to focus on youth because that's really important for APR reporting, as well as program staff. But you also have the option of adding adult participants and volunteers. So let's go ahead and create a youth record. Like I said, this is the first step in anything to do with the system is creating these records. So let's go ahead and create a testing record. So we will name this record Jimmy Nick Smith, and then we can put in their state student ID. This is a field that needs to be completed. So I'm just going to put some random numbers just because it's testing data, and click Add Person. Once you've added this record, you are ideally supposed to click into View Record and complete the remaining fields. As I mentioned, throughout the system, you'll see these red bars that say require 21st century fields. These fields are required for you to complete to pull this youth and their data into your APR reports and in the future, your GEPRA reports. So I'm just going to go ahead and complete this information. Make some selections for all of this, my grade for this year, and just scroll down. Once we end the required field, there is a set of optional fields that really depend on your organization. If your organization requires these, you would like to complete them as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and add in some birth date, perhaps their school attending. There's some other questions here. And then you can also add in family information. So I can add in, like, let's just say this is, Jimmy's father. And then I'm just going to scroll up and click Save. So that's the youth record. If there's any information here just for Becky and Jennifer that needs to be moved to required, please let me know. I will work on that. But for now, these are the required fields for your APR reporting, and the rest are optional. I'm just going to pause here and see if anyone has any questions or wants to bring up anything. Okay.
What is the round?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Where it says round 3, is that just their grade level that you put in there, where you had the 21st century CCL?
So the grade is actually up here, grade 21, 22, 21st century round. it could be something that's a bit outdated that we've kept in the system. I'm not quite sure what it ties to. Becky, do you know by any chance?
Because I've never added that before.
Yes, it's also not a required field, so I don't think it would make an impact on your, it will not make an impact on your report.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Becky, are you familiar with this round 1 through 5 with 21st century rounds?
Yeah, so that would be, this is my guess, if I'm guessing here, but grants can be administered for 1 year up to 5 years, and then the grants are renewed every year. And I am thinking that maybe that started when we first started the program, and they were in year 1, 2, 3, or 5, depending on the length of that grant is what I'm thinking that might be. But that is something I think is an old field that we could consider removing.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. So it definitely is something that was part of the original 21st century requirements, but it's no longer. So if that's something we want to remove, we can, but just to let you know, you shouldn't be concerned about completing that if you're not aware of what to enter in.
Thank you.
Of course. Is there any other questions?
Yes, this is Deb from Sweetwater Elementary. You know, this year with lunches being free for everyone, we're supposed to have those filled out by families, the lunch applications. But what I'm seeing during registration now, families are not, or they're more reluctant to fill it out because they don't have to, because everyone gets free lunches. I just want to make that comment. So I don't know that that's going to be as accurate as what it would normally be.
And that is a common issue. I'm sorry, this is Becky again, just to address that. That is an issue we're seeing across the US with that. However, not only here in North Dakota, but all states are encouraging programs, school districts, families to fill those forms out, because it doesn't only just affect 21st century funds, but other federal funds that come into the school district. And so we are still asking for folks to get as many people as they can to fill out those forms and get that documented, because that is a requirement that funding is based off of. We do know just that COVID is kind of messing with those numbers because of that, but as to the best of your ability, stress the importance of that form getting filled out and submitting that in.
Thank you. Yes, and then same with that, if we are aware that everyone's having free or reduced lunch, based on, you know, what Becky would like to forward, you could just perhaps automatically go in and just put them as guests, but I'm not quite sure how it depends on your reporting needs for that. Just wanted to mention that would be an idea.
This is Mary. I have a kind of a comment too. This free lunch thing is something that if you're new to Cityspan or whatever, you may not have this information when you're putting your kids' names and all their information in, because a lot of times when it's free this year, yes, but a lot of times that isn't determined until a later time. So you'd have to go back into the form. So what would you suggest, Navdeep, when you're marking free, reduced, and full? In a regular year, would you put unspecified at the moment until you get that clarification?
Yes, that is an option to mark it as unspecified, but that's the only concern is that we want to make sure someone goes back in and changes that information before reports are due.
Yes.
It's a little bit of data entry backtracking to that. I think as long as there's a good rule in place that, you know, for now, tag it as unspecified, but please go back in and update it when you have a chance, then it should be okay.
So now that everybody's free during this time, we would just mark everybody.
This is Becky, and from a state level perspective, I was just talking about this at the directors meeting yesterday with all of the directors, but I would prefer you not mark everybody a yes, because that's going to skew our data. They're not free and reduced based off of that criteria. It's just based off of a temporary change within the program. And so that's really going to skew our data. So as accurately as you can, mark those who have that form and actually qualify based on free and reduced lunch, because otherwise it's going to skew the number of children that we're serving meeting those criteria going forward, which is why we're stressing folks to get those forms filled out. But if you don't know, then yeah, that unspecified, I like that idea, but you'll just have to go back and backtrack.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
great, thank you.
Thank you. Great questions. Let's see. So I'm actually going to move on to the next step. As you can see here, that with this youth record, we have Form 1 and Form 2. Form 2 is optional. So if you go into it, you'll just see it's transportation information, pickup permissions, medical information, and miscellaneous. This is optional unless your organization requires you to complete some of this. Some staff like to have it on file, a printed document of who their children, for example, can be picked up by. So this is a really great spot to enter this data in. And then when we go to reports, I can show you a report that exports this information that you could print out for your records. Okay, so next I'm going to actually just move on to enrollment. So as many of you know who have been using the system, usually we complete enrollment through the group/activities tab, but actually, fun fact, you're able to also enroll at this level as well as take attendance at this level. So with my Jimmy McSmith, since this is a new record I created, they're not enrolled in any activities right now, but in theory, if they were, you would see all of the activities listed here and an A next to each one, and that A is for attendance. Like I said, this is not as commonly used because it is more time consuming to do one by one, but this is a spot where you can look at all your youth enrollment at a glance without generating a report. And with that being said, we also have reports for each individual student. So you'll see here APR reports and reports on the left menu are more so for all the data in the system. But this report at this student level is just for this participant. So you're only able to pull these reports for my student, Jimmy. And then lastly, we have surveys. Surveys are teacher surveys. They are required for APR reporting. I know some of that has changed throughout the years, the different type of survey requirements, but we still have that APR aspect of it. You can either add teacher surveys at this level, but I'm going to actually dive more into it when I go to the surveys level. Just going to go ahead and click view persons here. So I just went over the youth record. I briefly want to go over the staff record. So I'm going to click add person and click program staff. Staff records are extremely important for APR reporting as well. So you want to make sure your data is as clear as possible and that your staff records are entered in the system on top of being assigned to activities. Because if they're not assigned to activities, they will not pull into our reports as a staff member who is conducting activities. So I'm going to go ahead and create my staff record here. So his name is Evan James. Going to click add person and then click view record. So as you know, in the past we had PPIX was tactile APR reporting, but now we are tactile. So one really important field here that you must complete is tactile group staff type. So this, based on what's selected here, they will pull into your APR staff report. So generally it's usually school day teachers. I'm going to go ahead and click save, and I'm going to save that data. PPIX is a bit outdated, but we still have it here because some organizations still use that for their internal information. And then employment type is paid or volunteer. That also pulls into your APR report. So we'll just say this is a paid. And are they funded directly by 21st Century? So I'm going to say yes. As I mentioned in student records, you are required to complete the fields within these red bars for APR reporting. Everything else is optional. So if I scroll down, you'll see contact information, ethnicity, fingerprint, background checks are all optional and they do not need to be completed unless your organization requires it. I'm going to stop right here and see if anyone has any questions about staff records.
I do. This is Mary. As it sits in the required fields where you have his name listed, no middle initial, PPIS staff type is not marked, would this kick out in the report as missing demographics?
Well, middle initial is not a commonly required field throughout the system. So this will not, nor will PPIX, because we've updated from PPIX to tactile. So the field you want to complete is tactile group staff type. PPIX won't pull into any reports.
Okay.
It's there, as I mentioned, it's a historic field that we've kept because in the past, PPIX was completed. So we don't want to remove that data for older records like years ago, for example. But if this is a bit confusing, I can request that we move it below end of required field. How does that sound?
Well, it sounds good because nowhere else can you kind of not skip a line and not have it show up later on an APR report that there's missing information, you know? That's kind of confusing. Especially if you don't understand what tactile group is or what PPIS is. You know what I mean? That would be very confusing.
Yeah, okay, yes. No, I understand that. So we'll move it down. In terms of the demographics reports in APR, they're mostly aimed towards youth records, but I'll show you that a little bit later so we can see that. Okay, are there any questions about staff? Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to go ahead and click to Form 2 real quick just to show it to you. This is emergency contact information, optional unless your organization requires it. So I think moving forward, whenever I say optional, it's just if your organization requires it, you can complete these fields. If not, you can move forward. And lastly, reports. Similar to youth records, these reports are aimed just for staff records, and it will give you information on just this staff record alone. So I'm going to click View Persons. And that is how you enter participants and staff records. Are there any questions about this as a whole before I move on to the next section? Okay, sounds good, thank you. So next we're going to go into our groups and activities. So just to let you know, this is a bit of data entry that you're doing in initially, but once you've completed the initial setup of your activities and enrollment, the data entry goes by pretty smooth when it comes to just, adding in single participants here and there and taking attendance. So you can see here that upon landing on this page, you're seeing all of your activities that fall within the service term of 1/1/21 and 12/31/21. Sometimes users create activities that are dated either outside of the current term. If that's the case and you're a bit concerned, why wasn't my activity created or a lot of my activities are missing, that's simply because we need to switch the current term to all, and then you'll see all of your historic activities. The current term is a simple filtration tool we've installed throughout the system, so you can see your most current data without a long list of hundreds and hundreds of activities or assessments or surveys, for example. This cleans it up for you and keeps it neat and tight and just showing you your activities for the year, for your current term, which could be the year, could be 6 months. It's completely up to you. I will show you a little bit later on how to edit this current term because you are, in theory, supposed to edit this every year so it meets your current term. So I'm going to go ahead and click Add Activity here. So first we're going to start with the service name. So for your groups and activity, it is advised to include the year when you're creating the activity. So for example, I'll put 21-22 math tutors. No, not tutors, math testing. Next, I'm going to click my activity type. If this is tagged as non-21st century activity, this will not pull into your 21st century APR report. So there are situations where some activities are not funded by 21st century, which is okay, but you want to make sure these are accurately reflected because this will remove the activity from your reporting environment for APR. So it's something to really keep track of. So I'm just going to go ahead and click No here. And then, as you know, we're able to create 2 service types. We have our group activities and events. Group activities, we record attendance, we enroll youth. For events, we do not enroll youth, but I will go over those steps to show you the difference. Once I've entered in my information, I'm going to go ahead and click Save and Proceed. And now I'm taking to the general info page. For the purpose of your API reporting and your organization, you are required to complete the fields noted here. So let's go ahead and start with our 21st century categories. Let's say this is STEM for students of different populations, and subject area is mathematics. Going to scroll up, click save and proceed. So you see here I already completed 3 fields. Next, you must set a schedule. Without a schedule, you will not be able to enroll or take attendance. So I'm going to go ahead and click multiple dates since I'm setting up the schedule for the first time. I'm going to put my begin date. Let's say this is starting mid-year and it's going to end on the 31st. It's Mondays from 8 a.m. to 10 or 11:15, Wednesdays, Friday. Click add multiple dates. Okay, once you've added in your dates, you have the ability to make a few edits here. 1, you can add more dates. 2, you can delete dates. And 3, you can edit the time of the date. So for example, June 4th, actually I wanted to, here, July 5th. Monday, July 5th, it was a holiday this year because July 4th fell on Sunday. So I want to remove this from my activity because session is not going to take place there. I'll check the box off, click delete selected, and I will be taken to this page. Throughout the system, we will notify you with this type of message if you are deleting anything that we cannot restore. And that includes attendance. So if you delete this date and there is present records attached to a date, that will be permanently deleted. So you have to be really sure that you check the date that you're selecting. Instead of perhaps, instead of July 5th, I selected June 5th by mistake. So I want to make sure I selected the correct date and I'm okay with the records that are going to be deleted. Since this is 0, I know this is a holiday. There isn't going to be any data, and I'm going to confirm delete. And you'll see that the date has been deleted from my schedule. Lastly, at this level, I can update the time. Let's say Wednesday, June 2nd, we're having an in-service day for teachers. So instead of ending my activity at 11, I want to end it at 9. So I'll just click save and return. So you'll see that only on Wednesday, June 2nd, my activity ends at 9. So I know this is a lot of information, so I'm just going to take a brief pause and see if there's any questions about schedules. Okay, perfect. So once I've completed entering in my schedule, I'm just going to click return here. I just want to note, you'll see the word return consistently throughout the system. Return just means that I'm going to save the data on this page and go back to the last page I was at. So it does save your data. Just wanted to let you know that. If you click cancel, that doesn't save your data and takes you back to the previous page. Okay, next I want to assign my staff. So I'll click edit here. Pretty simple. Select my staff member, click assign staff, and then just return. And now we're going to assign a partner. So based on what Jennifer explained to me, that you are required to enter in a partner. Jennifer, do you want to explain a bit more about that? The concept of partners in the system? Jennifer, I think you unmuted, but I'm not able to hear you. Okay, I'm just going to briefly talk about partners as, okay, Jennifer lost sound. Okay, so partners are basically, I want to use the word third party, but it could be a different word, partner that comes in and, perhaps conducts the activity or helps with the activity or funds it, or even you're having your activity take place at this partner's location. So basically, you want to make sure that you're adding in a partner if applicable to your activities. So to add that, you can add your partner at this level, but if you're, I would always recommend if you're starting to enter your data to begin with, just go ahead and create it at the partners tab, and then it's easier to assign. But for the purpose of this training, let's just go through it together. You click edit, select the name. So, I do have some testing. So testing Fargo partner, for example, Wells Fargo. Their role is they're my funder. So I'm going to assign them as my partner. And then testing is also, actually the demo agency is also my partner, and they're a service provider. Like I mentioned, they could fund you, they can be a service provider, you can be using their location, click assign partner now, and then click return, and you will see your partners assigned here. So for your AYP, oh, is that Jennifer?
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Jennifer. Thank you.
Okay. Hi.
Assisting with this.
About that. Okay. Partnerships. I guess the thing I noticed while I was preparing our reporting for the state continuation grant, as well as AYP, especially the state continuation grant, I wanted to match up. I think Becky can attest to that. I asked her about it. It needs, all those partnerships need to match up in Cityspan and what we're reporting to the state. So here's where I found that connection, where we can ensure that we have the right partners listed. Is that what you were asking?
Yes, because you noted that it's for reporting, so I just wanted to have you emphasize the importance of partners.
I mean, it was, I guess I just wanted to point out that was loud and clear to me, and a really good place for us to double check our work and ensure that we have your current partners listed. And then maybe everyone needs to go back into Cityspan and take a look at who they have listed for partners, because when I've gone in there, I saw a ton of partners, which are awesome, but I don't have any partnership forms for a lot of those people, or else they're really old partners, so they need to be, I believe you would make them inactive. Is that what you would do? Not delete them?
Yes.
Okay.
We don't advise deleting any data. Inactive would be the correct step.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, perfect. So that's partners. And I think if you have any other questions about partners, we're going to actually go into the tab here, and I will show you how to create a record once we're done with this groups and activities. Okay, next is the location. Location is optional if you want to add in this information. It's where you're conducting the activity. So I'm just going to go ahead and assign this testing location to it. You can also create your, this is a bit, language is a bit different, but it's facilities and locations are the same. So I'm just going to enter my service description. So this is a testing math training. Just going to click return here. And I have completed my form. As I mentioned, I know it's a lot of data entry to begin with, but once you have this all set up, it's pretty easy to go forward with to enroll and take attendance. So let's move on to enrollment. So I'm just going to go ahead and click enroll here and click all. Since this is a demo site, I know there's not a lot of youth records, so I'm just going to go ahead and click all. But you have the ability to search by first name, last name, and person type as needed when you're creating your activity. So I'm just going to go ahead and enroll some of these youth. Just going to select a bunch so we can have some data in the system for them. And then click next step. Here you're able to enter an enrollment date. Some questions are, why do I need to enter an enrollment date? So this is because sometimes youth don't attend on the first day of activity. So let's say Mary, for example, is actually going to start on the 8th. And Jimmy is also going to start on the 8th. So this is basically telling me that before the 8th, these two students will not show up on my attendance sheets, and they will not be counted against me in any report. Starting on the 8th, they will start showing up on the attendance sheet. So this is why we ask for enrollment date, because there are situations where youth do start later than the first date of service. So click next step. Okay, so this is actually a really good thing to show here. Sometimes there are scheduling conflicts where youth is enrolled into another activity during the same time. Sometimes this is because they might be, but for the most part, it could be just an issue that the youth was enrolled by mistake either in this activity or the other one. So for the purposes, I'm actually just going to go ahead and check off their names. And then if I check off their names and click next step, they will be enrolled. But if I don't, if I click next step, for example, I took off Nora and Mora, and then you'll see that they weren't enrolled in this activity. So I'll click done and return. And here is my enrollment. Similar to how we entered in attendance, there are a few things you can do at this level. So you can click edit here for Sally Freeman. You can either drop or unenroll. These are two different things. Dropping is saying that Sarah attended for a month, for example, and then decided then her parents decided she couldn't attend anymore. So I'll click edit here. Let's say Sarah's parents, oops, sorry, I meant to put 7 1. Sarah's parents don't have a ride. Oh, sorry, Sally is her name. So that's a good reason. That's a common reason. They're just not able to attend our activity because they don't have a ride. So I just click save or return, and you'll see that Sally has been dropped from my activity. Dropping preserves all of her data, all the attendance we took between 6:02 and 6:30, and preserves that data without deleting it. But the other option is unenrolling. Unenrolling completely deletes this youth record in this activity. That includes all attendance. Unenrolling is commonly used, 1, if they were enrolled by mistake, or 2, if they never attended the activity and you just want to remove them from your roster. That is when you would want to unenroll. With this in mind, like I mentioned, unenrolling does delete records and we are unable to retrieve that. So once we click return, you'll see here that Sally dropped and her drop date is here. She's still on my attendance sheets, but she won't show up starting 7/1/21. And you want to use 7/2/21. The drop date should always be the last date of present attendance. So 7/1/21 was her last date of present attendance. Is there any questions about enrollment? Okay, perfect. Let's move on to attendance. So you'll see here that by default, you're going to always see incomplete through today. So don't be alarmed if you're not seeing, like, for example, June 1st, if that was scheduled. And that's because perhaps you already took attendance for them and they're no longer incomplete through today. So you can see here, here's my list. So I'm just going to click on one of the dates and enter an attendance. So I always advise just, I think the easy step is to click all present and then go through and tag youth as absent. It just saves a lot of clicking and data entry on your end. And also most of the time, everyone is present more so than absent. So if I click save and next day, I will be on the next day's attendance sheet. So I'm just going to go ahead and add in some testing data because I want to show you something, and click return. So you'll see here, those 2 dates are no longer here, but let's say I want to see those 2 dates that I already entered attendance for. So I'm just going to go ahead and click all dates, and you'll see here. Okay, so one thing to note are these colors. For API reporting, you are required to have, I believe youth needs 30 days of attendance to pull into an API report. So sometimes you'll say, this youth was here for 30 days. I'm seeing, but I'm not seeing this youth in the report. So this might be because we might have missed taking attendance for them one of the days. If you see green, this means attendance was taken for every single youth for that day. If you see this yellow, brown, orange color, this means that attendance was partially taken and some youth are missing attendance. So if I go into this record, you'll see here some are NA. I want to fix that. Click return, and now it's green. And then if you see red, that just simply means that no attendance has been taken, and it's all NA. So you need to go in and enter in that attendance. Is there any questions about attendance? Okay. Next, I want to move into reports. Similar to staff and youth records, you have these personalized reports just for this activity. Let's say that you just want a list of enrollment. So you can generate this report here. Here's all my enrolled youth, and I could just print it out and keep it for my records or however you want to use it. You can also print out attendance sheets, printable attendance sheets here as well, just for this activity. But I usually advise printing them all out in bulk using the reports tab, but there are occasions where staff members are overseeing only one activity, so they just need to generate it for this level. So I'm just going to go ahead and click activity list. And here's my activity. Are there any questions about activities before I move on to events? Okay, so next you have the ability to create events as well. So same as clicking add activity, you put in your service name. Oh, actually 21, 22, parent night event. Click my event instead of group services and click save and proceed. Oh, sorry, I forgot one of these questions. Okay, so you'll see here it's very similar to how you are setting up your group activity, but a lot of tabs are missing. So let's just go through this real quick, those items that we've gone over already. So we can just say this is college and career readiness, other, and cultural activities and social studies. Click save and proceed. And let's go ahead and set my schedule. So let's say this occurs once a month. So if we put through 12/31, it occurs on Wednesday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Click add multiple dates. And let me just assign my staff. And then when I click edit, okay, see that's what I was doing. So once you click edit here, there is this event attendance number here. So in group activities, you have the ability to assign youth and take attendance, but in events, it's just a overall total. So we can say 100 people attended. That includes staff. That can include staff, youth, and parents. That could also just be parents and staff. It really depends on how you really want to record this data at your organization, if you want to include everybody or just like how many parents. So if, let's say how many parents attended, 45. Click save and proceed. So you'll see here, there's my event attendance. And then you can also add in your partner, your location, and service description for events. Is there any questions about events? Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to go back to my groups and activities tab. And that's basically the steps that you'll be taking to setting up your groups, which is very important, and then taking attendance. So let's move on to individual activities. Okay, individual activities are one-on-one activities. Good examples include mentoring, tutoring, case management. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you how an individual activity is created. As I mentioned, this is one-on-one, and also I will show you how their schedule is created. So let's say this is a 2021-22 mentoring session. So you'll see here, it's the same except this big questionnaire. No sessions, not question, comment. No sessions have been entered. So very important with one-on-one individual activities is you need to assign a staff. Without a staff, you won't be able to link that staff with that youth record. That one-on-one link will not be created. So I'm going to go ahead and click assign staff, return. And I'm actually just going to go ahead and skip these remaining fields, but they are, you can enter them in for your 21st century because they are required for 21st century. And I'm going to show you how to enter my attendance. The schedule for one-on-one activities is created as you're adding in new sessions. So I'm going to click add here, click my staff, put my date, select my student, and click add record. So that's how you add a record of, your mentoring, your tutoring, your case management. And you can click here, you click details. It's a very simple form. It takes the service name, participant, staff, date of visit, and minutes, and then you can put your notes. Going to click return here, cancel, and here you go. Here's my attendance. And if I go back to general info, you'll see my schedule has created itself based on the sessions I am entering into the system. Are there any questions about individual activities? Okay, perfect. Now we're actually going to dive into something a little more complex called assessments. Some of you might have not completed assessments in the past for API reporting, but with the new GIPRA measures, this is something that you'll be required to enter into the system. Generally, assessments are state assessments or grades. Becky or Jennifer, feel free to jump in as you would, or chime in as needed during this conversation. But like I mentioned, the common ones for APR have historically been state assessments with a 100-point scale or the proficiency scale, or grades with the 100-point scale, A through F, and then A through F plus and minus. So I'm actually going to show you how to create an assessment. Assessments are a bit complex to create when first looking at it, but you'll get the hang of it. So you click here to add definition, which is a type of assessment. So let's say this is my 21-2022 state assessment. Let's say this is math. I would suggest making the name as clear as possible, because if you add 2021-2022 state assessment without adding in a few more information and you create 10 assessments with that same name, it's going to be really hard to differentiate them. So the clearer the title, the better it will be. So I'm going to go ahead and select my assessment type. Like I mentioned, this is going to be a state assessment. My subject is math, and my grade scale is proficiency. So you see we have North Dakota proficiency level here. So I'm going to go testing, and I'll create my definition. Once my definition has been created, which is my assessment, we're going to go ahead and enter in results. So I'll click on results here, click enter by assessment. So you'll see here my assessment's automatically been entered, tagged here. I'm going to put in the date, so let's say that they took it today. This is going to be for Jimmy McSmith, and he was proficient. So I'm going to click save and return, and here is my assessment. Generally, assessments are taken twice, or some are taken twice a year in the summer, in the fall and the spring. And when you generate reports, for example, the APR assessments report, you have the ability to enter in those dates, and it gives you a comparison of their how they've improved or not. Becky or Jennifer, do you want to chime in about how this is going to be work with GIPRA, or are we still waiting on some more information on that?
Yeah, so we do know that assessment is a requirement that we will be reporting for the next year. What we are looking at right now is just at the state level. If we can pull that assessment data at the state level, the issue that we're running into right now is privacy information. And so if we can't pull it at the state level, then that will be something that programs will have to work with their local school districts on getting those test results and entering them into the system from your level. But that is something that we're exploring right now. Ideally, if we can work out those agreements, then we'll pull that at the state level and enter it for you. But the worst case scenario is that you guys would have to enter that information.
Perfect, thank you. So yes, as I mentioned, this will be required. So if you have this information, I think it'd be good I'd start entering it in. But is there any questions about assessments? I just want to mention, if you don't have questions right now, that's completely okay. But as you start using the system more and entering in this data, please feel free to reach out to our help desk with any questions you have. They will be able to assist you. They're very familiar with the system and APR reporting, so they're able to assist you with those questions. So don't be stressed out to have questions today. It's okay. We have time to answer those throughout your usage of Cityspan. Okay, next I'm going to go into surveys. These are teacher surveys. These are APR required, and I believe they will also be in GIPRA. So if I click add survey, this is pretty easy. We click teacher tactile group, it's the only option. Select our participant name, which is student name, our teacher name, let's say grade, our subject, the date of the survey, and luckily with North Dakota, you only really have 2 questions. This form used to be extremely longer before, so this is nice. 2 beautiful questions, click save and return. And here's my teacher survey, nicely completed and ready to pull into reports. Just a note, same with any APR report, your students have to be attending 30 days plus for them to pull into any of our APR reports. So even if you create their teacher surveys, you create their assessments, we have to make sure that they have been attending for 30 days. That's the APR requirement, and that might change with GIPRA as we're working through understanding it better and implementing it to the system. But for now, I just wanted to note that. Are there any questions about surveys? Okay. And if you have questions at the end, we can revisit as well. Next, we're going to go into partners. So this is what we were talking about earlier for NESC, all sites. All partners should be entered and linked to activities for AYP and state reporting. This is a pretty easy partner. So when you click Add Partner, you complete these required fields within the 21st century section. So we can say this is Spartan Center. Program name is testing. This organization is a school, let's say, okay, I'm just gonna say school, I can't really think of a good one. And then receiving grant funds for its contribution. Yes, we're giving them 21st century funds for this, for example. What are they providing us? So they are providing us goods and materials. They're providing us other, like location, for example, and then, technical assistant. And then you can also select what kind of agency they are. So let's say that they're a post-school. You can put in contact information for this organization and then other information as needed. But for the reporting, all of this is required up here. I can go ahead and create my Spartan Center. And if I click return, view partners, here is my Spartan Center. And now I can assign Spartan Center to any of my activities. Is there any questions about partners? Okay, perfect, thank you. Let's see, let's move on to facilities. As I mentioned, you have the ability to add locations to each of your activities. It's completely optional. I'm just gonna go ahead and click add location just to show you how it looks. Pretty simple form. We could say this is our homeroom at Lincoln. Yes, the homeroom teacher is testing. So I've just created my location, homeroom at Link, and I can assign it to activities. Pretty straightforward. Is there any questions about locations or facilities? Okay. Now, before I dive into reports, I just quickly want to go into the utilities tab because I want to go take some time on the reports. The utilities tab has some tools that you're able to use. I'm just going to focus on one tool, which is the set service term. This is that service term I was talking about earlier that helps filter your activities. So let's say, for example, I just want to see everything that falls under my current school year. Oops, 30 is not a year. And I can put 12/31/21, click set term. So you'll see when I go back to groups and activities, here's my new updated term and all of the activities that have a date scheduled within my term. That's one thing I just wanted to focus on. And also I just wanted to briefly go over the bulk schedule date delete. As you know, I was mentioning that you have the ability to delete dates like holidays. So this tool is really good to delete holidays in bulk. So you'll see once I put in my date of 12/31/21, because that's Christmas or New Year's holiday, excuse me. You can see here my testing math activity takes place that day, and it'll list all of them. So if there's like 10 activities with this date schedule, it'll list all of them, check them off, and then go ahead and delete the dates for this service. Like I mentioned, our deletion will result in loss of attendance records that we can't retrieve. So we do have those messages continuously throughout the system. Confirm delete, and that date has been removed from all my activities. Okay, so now I'm just going to go into reports. By default, your system has a good chunk of reports. We have participant summaries, attendance reports, collection tools, which are printable attendance sheets, other miscellaneous reports that might be useful, missing demographics, for example. I always advise that when you first start learning to use the system, once you've entered in data for a good amount of days, like 30 days is a good amount of days, I would suggest generating all the reports just to test them out, just to see what they provide you with. There are occasions where you're trying to look for a report and you just can't find it. If you can't find something you're looking for, please feel free to call our help desk and we'll be able to assist you and try to find you the best report to meet your needs. Some reports I just wanted to go over, more so the APR reports are what's going to help you, but some good reports here are, for example, if I scroll down, you have our missing demographic summary report. This is a good report to see your youth and demographics that they have missing, so you can enter that in. That's really important for APR reporting. We have our custom report builder, which if I click into, I just want to show you this real quick. This is a really good report to pull as well, pull demographic information. So if I just select some options, if you recall earlier, I was talking about how we can give you a report with pickup information that you might want to put on your file. This would be that report. So I can put like, first name, last name, select their grade, and maybe their birth date, school attending, and parent and guardian information. So this is a really good thing. You can generate this and keep this on file if you ever just want to, like, at a glance, look at some students' information. This is a great report to generate. So I'm just going to go ahead and select some options and click next step. And then generate this in an Excel report. Oh, just make sure your pop-up blocker is disabled because they do open a new window. Let me try that again. Oops, sorry, actually I have some reports open. Let me try that again. Here we go. So here is that report. So you can see here for Jimmy, this is a demo site, so you're not going to see a lot of data, so don't be alarmed, but you can see here, I just have some information here. And this is a really good report to just have on file if needed at a glance. I'm just going to go to reports. And other good reports are our attendance by date, service, and participant. And as you might see from the name, they're broken down respectively by date, service, and participant. So these are really good reports to see some breakdowns. As I mentioned, I always suggest just going through it once, just trying to see the little descriptions and understanding the reports, because they will help you with just understanding the data in your system. Are there any questions about reports? Okay, let's go into APR reports. The first report to always generate is the exclusion report. Hands down, whenever you're about to get started with your APR data and you're ready to make sure everything looks good, exclusion report is the report. So I'm going to go ahead and generate this. This report is going to give you everything that's excluded from APR reporting and why. And this is important because this will give you a lot of information. For example, why is my mentoring session excluded? Like, this is an activity that's happening, should be reporting APR, but it's excluded. Oh, it has no category mark. So I can go back in and enter in that data. Same with participants. It's telling me that they attended fewer than 30 days, so they're going to be excluded. And other items like teacher surveys, etc. And this is a really good starting point. Start with this report, fix the data, and then generate your APR reports, and then you'll have better, cleaner data. After you've done that, go to cancel here. You can go ahead and generate your actual APR reports, activities, staffing, participants, state assessments, grades, and teacher surveys. Similar to the reports tab, I do advise just generating these once you have 30+ days of data, which you should, which most of the organizations should for example, last year. And you can start generating these reports. And if you ever have questions about your APR reports, you can always contact our help desk. Since we are moving forward to GIPRA, and we'll still have this APR information, but we'll also have a set of GIPRA reports as well, very similar to APR. Are there any questions on APR reports? Okay, thank you. Lastly, I wanted to, actually not lastly, but next, card scanner. I'm not quite sure if NESC uses card scanner. I do know some other programs do. Card scanner is basically, you select your activity, click launch scanner. You have a scanner on your end and you just scan in the member ID or the card or their ID that's internally in the system. If you would like more information about this, I'd be happy to go over it more. I don't think it's fully set up for the demo site, but if it's something you're interested in putting into your system, I'd be happy to talk about that more. And then lastly, I wanted to go over the Help Center. The Help Center is a great resource if you don't have time to give us a call, or it's like a time of the day we're not open. We have our user guides. We have our FAQs on how to do a lot of the stuff I just went over today. We have our reference guides. And then lastly, we have our issue tracker. This is a great source for you to reach out to. It's basically like an email. You click new issue here. Hi. Put in your issue and then click save and return. Cityspan will be notified right away that you posted this issue tracker. Someone on our support team will look at it and respond within 24 hours, either with the solution or follow-up questions, or anything that they wanted to, if they need you to give us a call, they'll respond within 24 hours. And our response should also trigger an email to you. So you should also receive an email as our response. And then you can either respond. And then once you have if you need to respond to it, you go back at this level and you click respond and you'll be like, hi, I was testing, just in case Cityspan followed up, and we'll be notified again. So this is a really good resource. If you're not able to call us or it's out after hours, you can always email us through this route and we'll be able to get in touch with you. So that is basically our system training. I noticed that Jennifer, is interested in card scanning. So Jennifer, let's touch base on that after via email and try to see how we can get that implemented to your system. But is there any questions about the system overall, the data entry pieces or anything? I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Okay, so as I mentioned, if you don't have questions now, as you're going through the system, you can always give our help desk a call because that's when questions usually do arise, so that's completely okay. If that is the case, I think we can end our training for today. Jennifer, Becky, did you want to add anything before we end today? Okay, I guess we will. Well, I just want to thank everyone for attending the training today. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our help desk and we will be in touch. Thank you. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week.